Hey guys, Jordan here, and today we are in the ListerPros podcast studio, I guess we could call it. And I have a special guest today, Ryan Richardson.
Hey Jordan, thank you very much.
Sold by You, longtime friend. So thanks for joining me and driving all the way on the east side of the valley and joining me.
I got a little refresher of the traffic here in Phoenix, which is great. But I also have to make sure that I give you the full realtor experience, and that's by showing up late. Yeah. So that's how that goes, right? So, man, thank you so much for having me here. And this is, it's been incredible watching you guys grow. And the studio and stuff that you have now is awesome. It's next level. You've really built something fantastic. So
yeah, it's been a fun thing. Actually, this studio I think is like almost 5 years old. I think we bought these studios in like 2020, but.
Yeah. I think, though, man, you and I go a couple decades at this point. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's been, I think 13, 14 years kind of thing. So when you and I met, I mean, it was very beginning of my real estate career. So it was 2013, maybe 12.
Yeah. So I started ListerPros at the end of 2013. So we must have met shortly, I think, in my first year, probably.
Okay. Yeah, you were the one doing all the shoots and stuff. And then basically we would do the photo shoot of the house and then go outside and do a photo shoot of the cars. You know what I mean? The Z's and stuff. That's how we connected. All right, we're done working. Let's do the thing we really love. No, it's. But how did we connect? Was it through the Joshua Smith Real Estate Group? Because I know. So
you were part of.
Yeah, I joined that team. That was basically how I started my whole license, my career. And he had a lot of the connections of the sign companies, the flyer companies, the title. I don't remember if he had.
I don't know the connection, but I know that Nate Brill used to work with him. Okay. I don't know if you worked with Nate at all.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a Joshua Smith connection because we never really did too much work with that group specifically that I can recall. I think some of the agents and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, because he had a photography company. I just couldn't remember if that was you or not. But I obviously wasn't impressed with what they were doing and ended up signing you on. So probably just us meeting each other at a car show. I don't even know how the heck we first met, but it was love at first sight. Yeah. So that's how that goes.
Yeah, we did a couple of shoots and then we're like, hey, you want to go to California? I'm going to put twin turbos on my 350s or 370s Nismo. I was like, sign me up.
Yeah, right. I love it. And then it was history from there. So, but no, I think, so we talked a little bit about it, but last time I was doing this podcast with you is when you were doing, it was Real Estate Pros, right?
Real Estate Pros, yeah.
And you had a different studio, and that kind of, as I mentioned, gave me the idea of how I'm going to look bald, because essentially I had the receding hairline, these bright lights up here, obviously made it so that I couldn't see the hair on top of my head. And I got to say, it's a good look now, so I appreciate you. You've contributed to this, which is nice. So. Thank you very much for that.
The bad lighting in the last studio.
Well, I don't know if it's bad lighting or just so good, Yeah. Usually I like to stay in the shadows. I'm a ginger, so we don't like the sun and bright lights. Yes. So, but no, it's been awesome watching you grow. Same time I'm kind of growing. It was similar but different, right?
No, I guess one thing that kind of stood out to me whenever I watched you grow, you got into real estate, you were a high performer, and then you went off. I think you moved to Colorado or something. I was just like, wow, you had this really successful real estate thing going on, and then he's off doing something else completely different. You were doing an IV business or something like this. I didn't know the specifics for a long time, but I thought that was an interesting transition.
It was completely different. I mean, especially from the fact that I hate needles, and then I got into the IV company. You know what I mean? So we send medics and RNs to patients' homes and treat them with IVs. So entirely separate from the real estate world. But after the Joshua Smith Real Estate Group, I went off on my own. Ended up really putting a lot of work towards building that business and building that clientele. And I felt like it was sustainable. My whole thought process, I had difficulties building a full-on company with it. And I think the problem that I was running into was when I hired a real estate agent that would do the job exactly how I want them to do it, as far as treating the clients, being there all the time, making sure that they have a personalized experience where they almost feel like they are their own agent. Like essentially the agent is taking care of the client directly. They got nobody else. That's literally what the feedback we would get from some of these people. I'd have 10 in escrow and they're like, dude, I feel like I'm your only client. That's amazing, and that's the feeling that we wanted to give a lot of people. Well, the agents that would get to that level, they would no longer need me. You know what I mean? So that they now know everything about real estate and they'd want to go off on their own. And then on the other side of it, the agents that need me all the time, they never hit that level, so then I don't want them anyway. So it made it kind of difficult to really grow, to let go. And that's one of your hardest things, is that first hire in any company, because you are so into what you do. There's a lot of customer service aspect of it. You kind of have to let go of some of that and be okay with a little bit of the quality control going out the window. You want to control it as much as you can, but ultimately at the end of the day, you start hiring people, they're going to be the ones that are interacting with not agents, but with clients and stuff. And I couldn't get to that level in real estate. It was always really good for myself, but then you see those mega teams out there, they have a high turnover rate. They've got to the point where they're taking their commissions. It's more of an employee side of things, to where they're every couple of months they're hiring new agents, and I just didn't want to do that either. It was one of those where I felt like I wanted to do something else. And my joke behind it was, this was 2019, that somebody one day smarter than me is going to come out with an app that replaces the need for real estate agents. I don't know when. It's going to be 15, 20 years from now. I just don't want to be 65 one day. I've built this great business, and all of a sudden I'm replaced, and it's like, hey, I've got to go find another job at that age. So I was always kind of looking at other options. There's a few things that crossed my plate, but one day I had, and I want to say it was 11 or 12 in escrow. We had a few that were closing that week, and I just absolutely got hit with the bug. I was super sick, to where I felt like I couldn't move, deathbed status. I lay down in bed. I've got the kids set up upstairs on Netflix. And it kind of sounds like a nice day, because you're just going to lay in bed and be miserable and not do anything. But I'm like, I can't do this, So as soon as I hit the pillow, I remember a good friend that does it on the side. He was a firefighter, and he ended up taking care of people with IVs. He would go to their houses, set them up with some vitamins, with some saline, get them hydrated. And I'm like, you know what? I hate needles, but I'm supporting a buddy's business, So he comes out. Before the IV is even done, I'm perfect. And I'm like, this is absolutely insane, man. I can't believe how well this worked. To where instead of me wasting a whole day feeling miserable, and then possibly even the next day, I'm immediately ready to go. And it was almost like my body was fine, but my mind was like, no, wait, we're supposed to be sick right now, So it was the weirdest thing. But of course, it's funny. We've got a picture that's out there of me basically hyperventilating because I can't stand the needles. I've got, for lack of better term, sorry for the mental image, but throw up on my shirt. And I'm just like,
It's really that bad about needles?
Well,
even today, or you've chilled
I'm
out?
Good. Right. I've had so many IVs now that I'm just like, all right, let's go, But at the I like to claim that I was sick, and that was the reason I threw up. It wasn't because of the needles, But of course, my buddy is like, no, bro, it was the needles. So, but anyway, it was a couple weeks later. I couldn't stop thinking about how awesome it was. He was firefighter, was his medical background, and he's running around, just trying to take care of people. He's still at the fire station. And I was just like, this is something that I want to get into. I know absolutely nothing about the medical field, but I definitely know the business mindset of stuff. So I had an open house that was going on, and typically my open houses have been fantastic. There are constantly people going through because we advertise the heck out of them. And this one, for whatever reason, was just completely dead. I think I had maybe one person come through, and I was there for 4.5 hours. And I'm looking at my phone, and I'm like, I feel like if I don't call them, I'm going to regret it. So sure enough, I touched base with them, like, hey man, I've been I know you're doing it here in Arizona, but I've been really thinking about taking this to the next level. Your idea, what do you think about opening another state? I will run it. I will fund it. I just need you for the medical side of things. And he's like, well, this is a win-win for me. There's no risk here. I'm in.
Right.
So sure enough, like you said, I moved up to Colorado, lived in a basement. I studied the product that we had, the medical side of things, supplied our medics and RNs. We work underneath the doctor and stuff too. And basically just built it from a basement in Colorado. And now we're in, I believe, 11 states. So it's something that's just continued to grow. But I look back and I'm like, dude, nobody's still made that app, So we kind of have started to dabble into the world of trying to automate a lot of this stuff as far as the real estate world. I think there's a lot of technology out there that provides a lot of information for buyers and sellers that you can start to kind of simplify that process for a lot of people out there and save a ton of money in the process.
Yeah, I think over time, in regards to the real estate industry, there's been a lot of, I guess, products or companies that come around where almost real estate agents feel a bit threatened by. I remember the vibe when first like Open Door, OfferPad, and then Zillow's trying to take our business. Or like,
Right.
I mean, there's a lot, and then there's like flat fee companies and this and that. But here we are, probably 10 years after those companies starting, and it's, it has changed. I think there's parts of the business for different parts. I don't know what percent of the in this market economy right now. Obviously, Open Door and OfferPad don't thrive as well when there's not like crazy appreciations in the real estate industry going on.
Well, you have to have equity, because essentially OfferPad and Open Door, when they offer on a home, and they're like, hey, like, we'll allow you to live there as long as you want, search for another house, and we're going to write you a $100,000 check. Typically, people are like, holy crap, okay, I'm in, not realizing they probably have 150 grand in equity there. But at the end of the day, people are looking for that lower price for the ease of the situation, right? So it makes it so that OfferPad, Open Door, they would thrive because everybody's got equity. Well, then you start getting to the point where people don't have that level of equity, and Open Door comes to them and says, hey, we'll let you stay there. You can search for your other house, but you need to write us a check for $15,000. You're like, no, right. I'm not going to do that. So that's the tough part. I think you have to find something for the future of real estate that works in an up and a down market, buyers and sellers markets kind of thing.
So talk to us a little bit about what you have going on right now back in the real estate side of things. You have a platform that's called Sold By You, relatively new. So I guess talk to us a little bit about the background, your thought process around it, and where you anticipate it going.
Still definitely a work in progress. It's one of those where we're finding how expensive apps are truly to build. But, it's one of those, we've even talked about a little bit too, the AI aspect of things that are coming out that are available to the general public. That's going to transition into the real estate world. It has to. So we're trying to implement a little bit of that as well too into the app. It's still fairly new, so we're still kind of in a learning process. But essentially, at the end of the day, in a nutshell, I guess you can say, is it's taking my experience and knowledge that I've learned since 2013, so over the last 12, 13 years now, and putting it into an app to guide buyer and seller through the entire real estate process. And I've got my brokerage license here so that we're able to still provide everything that I would provide as a real estate agent in terms of you go to list your home, you put all the information into the app. I receive that. I'm able to verify it, make sure that everything looks good. I'm even actually checking the values that you selected to make sure those are in line with the market. And then we list those on the MLS, which then syndicates to all those public sites. Then the big thing that we're advertising is, hey, we're utilizing our same marketing plan that I used to do as a real estate agent. A big part of that is you at ListerPros. You guys come in, people are simple creatures. They like bright, pretty, shiny things, and that flows through your photos. And that's kind of one of the first things that people are looking at whenever they're looking for homes. Essentially, they're scrolling through, they're going through all the pictures of the different properties. If they find one they like, well, that's when they're stopping and they're reading about it. They're not even looking at the price until they've actually seen the photos and want to get the details. So I think you're a huge aspect, and then what reason why I wanted to hire you to photo shoot all of our listings. I think you do a wonderful job just helping real estate agents in the real estate world sell a lot of their properties. So we're trying to utilize that as well too into the app. But the big thing that we're trying to kind of, as I mentioned, simplify it. A lot of people, and especially in real estate, there's a lot of if this, then that situations. So you've got to kind of have a diagram here that it's possible someone goes to sell their home and they're not dealing with the 15 other options that could happen during escrow.
Right.
But if they do happen, we have to provide videos and details for that. Plus as well too, I've got it to where eventually I want it to be 100% automated, towards providing everything that you need from start to finish. But I'm always going to have either myself or another real estate agent that's there to answer questions, to guide you through the process, which I think is really important. It just kind of gives you that peace of mind, because at the end of the day, we don't want people to have to go and learn real estate from start to finish. You're not going to real estate school. You're just simply selling your property. So whenever you list it, we want to make it so it's guiding you just like what a real estate agent would do. At the end of the day, you think about it, when you go to sell your house, you're still filling out the paperwork. The agent's telling you, hey, can you send this email over here? They're asking you for your payoff. They're asking for all these different things. The app is just simply now asking for that. And instead of, paying 3%, or, a lot of people are negotiating around 3% is kind of somewhat the standard it used to be. You're seeing 2.5%, 2% sometimes on the listing side. So instead of paying those costs, especially when, last time I looked, through the MLS, the average sales price in Phoenix, just for an average home was like $590,000. You look at 3% of that, that's, you're over $15,000 essentially. So this app is providing all of those same details at $795. And then you've got the setup that we're building too is the buyers. NAR dealt with that big lawsuit I'm sure that you heard about last year. I feel like it actually kind of hurt the industry because now you've got buyers that are unsure whenever they're going to these different homes of, is the seller going to pay for my buyer's agent? Am I going to have to write another check for 3% to this person? They don't know. They're already coming up with the down payment. They're trying to come up with their closing costs. Now they've got an extra cost that they may or may not have to pay. It makes it difficult. And then you've got agents now that, their fiduciary duty is to take care of their client, put their client ahead. The very first question they ask whenever they're going to write an offer is, hey, are you offering a buyer's agent commission? And it's like, that just in human nature is going to cause them to kind of be persuasive one way or the other. And it makes it kind of difficult because if you have a seller that's like, well, no, I've priced it low enough to where essentially this is my bottom line. If you want to have a buyer's agent commission, we've got to raise the price. Well, now they're going back to tell them that, and if a client has interest in another home, well, now they're going to be persuading them for the home that actually is paying the real estate agent. So I feel like it's convoluted the process a little more. So again, streamlining that, providing everything that we're doing on the seller side, doing that on the buyer side, and it's completely free. And people I've actually had come to my open house. I actually had a lender that I used to go to high school with. She walks in and she's just like, dude, what are you doing? She's like, I can't believe you're doing this. And then for so cheap. And it's like, well, we're not trying to make a ton of profit on an individual transaction. I don't believe in selling a home and making $30,000 on your commission. I just don't think that should be the way that it works. I definitely feel like I've provided a lot of value in negotiating and helping with the inspection process and doing a lot of that stuff. But at the end of the day, the title company is the one that's doing the signing and the recording. The lender is the one that's doing the funding. Appraisers appraise, home inspectors inspect. They're all getting paid a pretty nominal amount. And then you got the real estate agent that put all that together. Why are we getting paid $30,000, $40,000 on a single transaction? And then you get to the point where because it's such a large lump sum, well, now you're getting people that are hiring other individuals that essentially are willing to take 30% of that commission, do all the work. So your commission that you have is going to people that you didn't even talk to. So it's like, why not put that into an app? You're saving money for the individuals, and now it becomes a volume-based business. We're trying to get to the point where if we've got 100 listings a month, well, now we're profitable. Now we're able to utilize this and really change the real estate industry. And then the profit margin becomes to where we're more focused on the vendors. We've got all these clients, these sellers, the buyers that are coming to our app. There's movers out there, there's roofing companies, handymen, electricians. They would make a ton of money by getting in front of all those clients. Well, now they're able to advertise on our app, and that's really generally where the income comes from, to the point to where you make enough listings and clients out there, you don't even have to charge anything because you've got that advertising aspect to it. So I'm excited about it.
And that was probably my biggest question to you. I'm like, you're paying for photography, you're paying for a sign installation, and you're charging $795. And I'm like, how are you making money?
Right.
Like what's your path to profit,
right. Exactly. And it has to be volume based. But it's also kind of similar, and the thing that pops to my mind is how kind of Open Door started. When they first came out, they were giving offers that were essentially more than what real estate agents can provide. And I remember looking at it, I'm like, how are these guys making money? And they just wanted to get the brand out there. They probably had a lot of transactions in the beginning that they weren't making anything on. But they see that as, hey, it's free. Every successful sale is advertising, because now you're showing that this is a proven concept that actually works. So like right now, when we get that listing, you got the $795, we're paying for the photography, we're paying for the sign. You've only got a couple $100 in there. But then what I'm doing is I'm also advertising all the neighbors to let them know about the just listed property. It's absolutely in the negative, but we're planning for that. We want to be able to build that. So hopefully in a year or so, you're able to start turning that profit. That's kind of the idea behind it. And it's a very similar concept to what we did in the IV world. We are one of the cheapest mobile IV therapy companies. And that's without sacrificing quality, right? We want to make sure that we do it right. We still have the doctor. We still have to do the exams, the tele-exams, essentially, where they're talking to somebody to kind of tell them their symptoms, prescribe what we're doing. We don't want to do it incorrectly, but we're also making sure that we are barely making a profit on there so that it's attainable to as many people as possible. And because of that, we've got 600 nurses and medics that were working for us versus those companies that are 2 and 3 times the amount that we charge, and they've got a workforce of 30 people. It's just you can't get to those calls unless you have that high volume and you're taking care of your people. And that's basically the same concept we're trying to do here at Sold by You.
Yeah, and so obviously right now it's still pretty early on. So what has been your initial experience? There's and also like the experience for the buyer, or probably mostly sellers right now, right?
Yeah, and we've actually had a couple of buyers to where essentially the buyer was also interested in our listing, and we went through that whole process, and it didn't charge anything for the buyer side. So now you've got to the point where our seller has saved a full 6% commissions because we've navigated through that whole process. Big thing for us is we're just like, hey guys, make sure you leave a review for us. That's all we're asking for, because again, we're in that building stage. But I'll tell you, experience-wise, it's been interesting because there's been absolute raving fans that's just like, holy cow, like why does this not already exist? And that's what I ran into a lot whenever I was talking about the concept to people. And then you get the other side of it that just want absolutely nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I can't figure out a better way to say this, but I feel like a part of us has underestimated the lack of enthusiasm, or essentially the laziness of people. They just feel like it's a lot of work. I don't want to have to learn this thing. It's a stressful process anyway. I would rather just pay somebody. And at the same time, it's coming out of their escrow, right? It's coming out of the settlement statement at the closing table. It's not coming out of your wallet. It's not coming out of your bank account. So that $30,000 check that they're writing to the agent, they're not really seeing it as a cost until they get to that closing table. And then essentially people are always making the comments like, holy crap, like I can't believe you're making all this money type of thing. So we have to find a way to rewire people's brains to understand it's not that difficult of a process as long as we get you in touch with the right parties at the end of the day. And that's going to be your title companies, your lenders, your home inspectors, the professionals that essentially are guiding you through that process. And then of course having it to where you still have access to an agent to pick their brain if you have any kind of variable, odd situations. But at the end of the day, we're still taking care of everything on the back end to where I really don't feel like it's any more work than what you would have as a typical real estate agent.
Yeah, so I guess that would be my question, right? So like what's the biggest difference I guess there's a few skill sets that a real estate agent brings to the table. One Absolutely. Would be like negotiation. So if a home seller, what does that look like? Is there like hey, I want help negotiating with this potential buyer on my house?
Right.
Is it an add-on, or can they pay for service, or how does that work?
Right now, there's no extra cost. Eventually, when we have fully automated the system, and like I said, that's about a year goal, there's going to be an option to be able to have a consult with a real estate agent. We'll figure out like an hourly fee, kind of like what you do with like an attorney whenever you sit down with them. My thought process behind that, even if you're at $50 an hour and you need an agent for a good 5 hours to take care of you, what is that? That's $250 that you paid versus, again, that 3% that you're talking about. So it's something where you still have hands-on access to a real estate agent for pennies on the dollar. Now, right now, because the app is not fully automated, it has most of the stuff there, but we're still building it out. I'm just fully taking care of people to where they have full access to me. They have my direct line. We're talking all the time, navigating them through the process, just like I would as a real estate agent. I'd say the only difference right now that you do instead of if you had a real estate agent is hanging your sold sign. I mean, literally, we tell them once you've got the accepted offer, once that sign and that post is delivered, we have the sign company actually leave the sold writer on their front porch. And I've got a video that shows them, hey, this is how to, to hang it and to screw it in there, and then just take a picture, take a little selfie of it, But that's actually, I'm finding, is an exciting process for people. They're like, dude, I can't wait to hang this thing, They've got it to where it's like they hang it up, they put it on their counter just to remind them that, hey, that's my goal, is to get that thing sold. So I think it was actually a beneficial process by involving them directly. And a lot of times, too, people want to talk about their home. When questions come up, they're the experts on their home. So ultimately, the agent is just going back to them anyway. I'd say the one caveat that maybe is on the negative side is being a real estate agent, being fully involved in the market. If someone offers me something, I know immediately if that's a good offer or not. Whereas a seller, typically they're going to know kind of the value of their home and what they want to sell the property for, but they're not going to know, hey, that home right down the street just sold for 3 times the amount that you're offering me. That's why the app has the ability for them to be able to pull comps just like I would. So they put in their address, they put in a few details about their house, just as far as square footage, single story, any other features they add. And then they hit, find comps. It pulls the comparables on the same filters that I would essentially pull whenever I'm trying to pull comps for your house. And then they can go in and they can change some of their filters on their own. So you have to have a little bit of a computer knowledge to it. But I think, again, this day and age, that for the most part, people do understand how to work through a computer, how to change some filters, things like that. But at the end of the day, if they can't figure it out, they can just call me and we'll take care of it for them. So there's always a solution to make it as easy as possible for people. And that's something that I'm really excited about. But the biggest thing is rewiring people's minds, because for so long, I want to sell my house. Well, I'm going to call a realtor. And the big thing is everybody and their mom's a realtor right now, man. It's everybody has a license. Some people are doing it just for their own personal stuff. Some people are doing it part-time. But essentially, I feel like everybody knows 3 to 5 agents. So now it's like, well, who do I call? You know what I mean? And are they actually going to provide the value that comes with that cost? Yeah. That's the tough part. You don't know that until you're literally in the transaction with them. And by then it's too late to make a change. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm. So what's the biggest learning curve, I guess? Because it is definitely a mental shift, because it's however long it's been real estate agents for decades and decades. And I think there are some platforms that have kind of simplified certain aspects of a real estate transaction, especially the ones that are like Open Door Offer Pad. I think they're very efficient at purchasing properties direct. Obviously, the biggest variable being how much are you going to offer me. Right. Same thing like in the Carvana world or whatever, CarMax. There's a lot of the simplifying that. But essentially what you're doing is like the full real estate process. But I got to tip my hat to you, because that's a lot of variables to tackle. Yep. A lot of videos, a lot of explanation. And
I've created every video that I possibly can. And actually, it's funny, I had a couple of clients that would call and ask me questions. I was like, oh yeah, there's actually a video of exactly that. It's really cool because you see that, and then you're able to provide those details for people. They can watch it as many times as they want. They can pause it. And then, of course, if they have additional questions too. But in that little over a decade of doing real estate, I realized, I'm having the same conversation over and over with people. We're talking about the escrow process. What is earnest money, inspection periods? What do I do whenever they've actually got some repair requests that they have? All these different things. But again, that's why at the end of the day, you have to ultimately have access to an agent. What we're always going to have access to.
Yeah. So what if somebody gets into it? They're like, $795 or whatever sounds great, and they get into it. They're like, I got too much going on. I can't deal with this myself. Is there like a quick button here? Let me go the agent route or something, or is it like exactly? Or like what's
you always have the ability to upgrade essentially to a full-on agent, but essentially we've got a satisfaction guarantee. We believe in the product so much that if we're doing the photo shoot, we're doing the sign, we get you on the MLS, and then a weekend you're like, you know what, I can't do this right now. First, we're gonna have a conversation with you as far as why do you feel that way? What's going on? Because I haven't had anybody tell me that it's too much work. I've actually had the opposite. People, it's that initial fear of, I'm Alice in Wonderland. I don't know this process. I'm going to jump into this, and I don't know how I'm going to land on my feet. And then they make that jump, and they see what we've built and they're like, oh, this is awesome. This is super easy. So essentially it's been a really great feedback on that side. But at the end of the day, satisfaction guarantee, we want to make sure that people have that peace of mind that they can always make that change if they want to go back to a traditional sale. But here's the thing though too, man, is you even mentioned, I mean, there's been agents for decades, right? So that's a part of going back and rewiring people's minds to how to perform real estate. But the industry itself really hasn't completely changed since, I mean, you're talking the 80s and 90s. If anything, the job has gotten easier for the real estate agent because now they've got access to the internet. They're able to pull all the listings. They can send the actual listings to their client and have their client pick the listings that they want to actually view. You've got electronic signatures now. So agents aren't driving around trying to get signatures for an offer that never goes through. You know, they're not having to do all of that stuff anymore. They're sending an email that takes them 5 minutes. But the percentages haven't changed. You know, you're still looking at the 3% standardized per party commission. So now you got 6% total. But now you're talking about a $600,000 house versus think about what they were selling in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like your $50,000, $60,000. Yeah, your 6% makes sense. I mean, gosh, you can only, you got to sell multiple to be able to make some kind of commission on that. And we've completely gotten away with that, where there's a lot of agents out there, their goal is to simply sell one a month. It's like, that's all they need to do because they're making so much money off one individual. There's got to be a change. And I think that Open Door and OfferPad certainly offer some of those things to simplify the process, but there's always still a cost. You know, you're not realizing how much you're losing because it's just coming out of your equity. But at the end of the day, you know, me as a business owner, I care about my assets, right? I want to maximize them as much as possible. So I would rather take control of my asset and know I got 100% minus $795 essentially. You know what I mean? And that's the mindset that we need to start to providing to people, and understanding that it really is a simple process. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if it ends up not being that way, you've still got agents that are here to be able to guide you through, just like as if you'd be utilizing or dealing with on a standard listing.
And it's like product market fit. I think there's different, like some people will always use a full agent. Mm-hmm. Some people like the easy route. They'll all just sell to, whatever billboard is up, down, driving down the street. Yep. That'll buy your house. What do you anticipate like adoption of something like this, and how long would it take? And just out of curiosity.
Yeah. The biggest thing is getting the ball rolling, right? Once it's a proven concept and we're able to show that it works, well, then people start to trust the process. And I think that's been our biggest thing is we've got a couple of listings that are kind of getting in there, but I want to have it to where we've got signs everywhere. Like people are just driving and they see the Sold by You signs. They're like, holy cow, like these guys, like kind of like OfferPad and Open Door. They were everywhere. You saw their signs. And that's because it was a proven concept that worked. Well, now people know I'm not just going to call a real estate agent. I'm going to check with Open Door. Kind of that same concept. I'm not just going to call a real estate agent. I'm going to check with Sold by You because I see their signs everywhere. And then I see the sold writer that's on top of it. That's the biggest thing. So I would say, it's like I said, I want to get fully automated within a year. It'll probably be another 6 months to a year after that before I think that it's a fully trusted in the community as far as being a concept that works. And another reason why too, it's funny, we get some people that are like, do you get a lot of hate from real estate agents? I'm like, well, no, not really. It's one of those where a lot of agents out there, some are threatened by it, right? Because they understand that it is something that works. But I feel like those that are threatened by it are the ones that are it's designed to replace. You're out there doing vacation, you're not answering your phone, you're not really assisting the client like you normally would. Well, you're the one that can be replaced by an app. But those agents that are out there really doing a good job, they're personalizing, they're the ones that, get the invitations to 7 different Thanksgiving dinners because they feel like it's a family friend. You're never going to be replaced by technology because you've developed that personal relationship. They're willing to pay you that extra money because they trust in you. The problem is I feel like we've gotten away with that. And a part of that is just because there are so many real estate agents that are out there. But I remember whenever I was doing it full time, as far as a standardized agent, I'd be selling a home. I've got the buyer that's calling me like, hey, do you know what's going on with my house? I'm like, well, yeah, you guys recorded 3 hours ago. Like, we can't get in touch with our agent. Like, what is going on? It's like, holy cow. Like, okay, well, this is like a big day for you guys. And like, we have the moving truck, everything. I'll meet you at the property and I'll give you the keys, you know. That's the kind of stuff that some people are running into. You wouldn't have that issue with an app because you're in control of it. You are the contact. You know, the title company is reaching out to you directly to tell you, hey, you've officially recorded, go get your keys. You know, and I think that's so much better. And I've actually done my residence, I think we talked about it a little bit, over in the Kentucky state.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it out there. I come back and forth, but my biggest thing is just the green, right? I love the Four Seasons.
Sure.
I spent so much time in Arizona, and I grew up here. I was tired of the desert. I make the joke that I've escaped. But they do their closings where they're sitting at a table. You're the seller, I'm the buyer, right across from each other. It's like the old style. And I thought that was the coolest thing because ultimately they watch you sign on the line. You've got the check. You hand that to them. They hand you the keys and you're done. There's no waiting. Is it
like
for
mandatory? Is that just how they typically operate there? Because I know sometimes it's like real estate agents or real estate attorneys, or they have different rules for different states.
I know there's the attorney states, and that's one whenever because eventually the app, we want it to be in multiple states. We'll need to look into how the attorney aspect works. As far as I understand, it's really just, it replaces the title company. You still have the real estate agents. There's a slightly different process. But I feel like simplifying that process, the way that they do it in some of those older states that just aren't as crazy, aren't as busy, that's the way that I think that real estate really should be. You know, because I still talk to those sellers all the time. It was like it developed a relationship where it's like, man, you guys are awesome. You guys are friends. I'm going to create memories and build a family in the house that you guys created memories and built a family in. That's incredible. So being able to bring that together, I think, is huge. And the app somewhat does that. It's going to guide both buyer and seller through the process to kind of make sure that they're not doing something that's just completely out of the ordinary. But at the end of the day, it's allowing the buyer to be more in control and direct contact with the home they're buying, and the seller to be able to do the same. And I think that's a really, really neat feature.
Yeah. So right now, where do you guys operate, or where are you guys launching at?
So it's just the Phoenix area. And that's just because of the fact that I know the Phoenix market like the back of my hand. So it's like you want to perfect it here where you know it, right? And once it's a well-oiled working machine, it's down to that fully automated system. All right, now we want to go into Texas, Colorado, Florida, you know, start going into those other markets where essentially we can start providing it to other communities as well too. But I need to perfect it to make sure that 99.9% of what the client needs is already in the app before we do that. I don't want it to be a half-finished product before we start launching it, because again, it really does come down to we have to rewire people's brains to how they do real estate. And the only way to do that is to have trust in the community. If they don't trust the process and they go through and it's only providing half of what they need and you're getting cancellations, they're never going to use you again. So we have to make sure that it's not only providing everything you need, but it's a simple process. And I think that's the biggest thing that we need to portray and allow people to understand before they get involved.
So is like all the infrastructure built out right now on the seller side, so they could literally, do they just download the app and they go there and then...
So it's more of a web app. So initially we started off with mobile apps. I feel like everybody's tired of downloading mobile apps. So,
yeah,
you know
you can just get a good experience on the mobile URL or whatever.
Well, and the whole thing is I know now, like whenever I go somewhere or like you know, want to, it's like, you know, hey, you want more information about our business, scan here, and you scan it and it brings you to download an app. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to, I don't need to know anything else about your business. Whereas if it's a website, which is the web app, that's where I'm not having to download anything. I don't have to register and provide all my information to you that you're then now going to sell, and I'm getting a bunch of telemarketer calls. That's something that was, there's actually business models out there where they're like, we don't need to make money on the service. We just want to collect client data and sell it on the secondary market. Wow. And it's like, dude, that's insane. So that's not something that we're doing. We're trying to provide the whole concept before you even need to register. The time that you need to register on the app is when you're ready to list your home and when you want to contact a seller about a home that you see. We want to provide everything else prior to that so you have full access to everything. Again, to build that trust. You know, if you're on the fence and you're not sure if you want to do this, how are you going to make that leap if you don't have access to what the whole process is? That's kind of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So,
was there anything else that you wanted to talk about before I ask you about a Lamborghini or something.
Yeah, right.
About the sold by you app.
Back to our love of cars for sure. So no, I mean that's kind of it was just something that's exciting. It's certainly a learning process. It's something that we've got hurdles. Those hurdles are mainly just to provide an ease of use for clients. And I think the biggest thing, honestly, is just having access to me. And then whenever it gets to the point to where I'm getting too many calls, we hire a person that's working 9 to 5. And all they do is answer emails and calls and things like that. And that way, we're able to guide these people through the process, save a ton of money, and allow them to have full equity in their home. I think right now, we're already seeing some signs of kind of the real estate cooling. It's been that way for probably the last couple of years. So there's people that bought 2023, 2024, they don't have a ton of equity to be able to utilize a standard real estate agent. So being able to utilize a service like this now makes it, instead of you writing a check for 20, 30 grand, you're getting a check for that.
Yeah, you really feel, I guess that's an interesting point, because in a market where you don't have as much equity, a 6% check having to pay out of pocket versus much lower, like $7.95 or whatever, the sellers will feel the pain essentially in a market where you don't have tons of equity.
One thing that I'll never forget, this is whenever I started my real estate career, so 2013. I think there wasn't a lot of people that had a ton of equity. Our bottom, I think, was 2011. But a lot of people sold or bought, in 2008, 2009. Then things kept going down. They didn't have a ton of equity. And I remember I helped one of our sellers, went through the whole process. It was fantastic. They were super happy with it. They get to that settlement statement that I was talking to before. They look me dead in the eye and they're like, "You're making more money on our property than we are." And I'm just like, sorry. You know what I mean? But and at the same time, that's when I was with the real estate team. So me as an individual, I'm actually not. I'm having to pay 3 and 4 different people because you get into those mega teams. But at the end of the day, it's like that was my first experience. You're talking 12 years later, I've had a little over 300 transactions individually. That's not through a team. That's just me handling those. And I still remember how that made me feel, because I really believed in the real estate process, and I still do, but I was there to be a part of one of the biggest moments of people's lives. I'm not really there to try and make as much money as I possibly can on people. So when people look at me and they're like, "Dude, this was our livelihood. This is our biggest asset that we own, and you're making a bigger check than we are," that hurts, man. That's a tough thing. And I think that's the type of market that once you get into that, apps like this have to exist. Right now, you've got some people that bought in 2015, 16, they've got 100 grand in equity. So they're fine with writing the check for 50 grand to their real estate agent. The problem is, though, is if this really is the biggest asset that you own, why would you not want all of your equity in there? Why would you want to write that check? Then you're now going to buy another house that you got to pay 3% on a buyer's agent there. And if people are rolling that into the price, you do a 30-year mortgage. They show you buy a home, I forget what it is, but like a $300,000 home, if you pay all the way for that 30 years, well, you've paid $1.5 million. So imagine that $15,000 buyer's agent commission that's now rolling into the loan.
Yeah.
Dude, it's costing you $60,000.
I think a lot of people don't have that long-term approach to like their finances, or they're just, whatever the easiest right now.
Yeah.
And then it settle. If you pause for a second and look at all the ramifications of the decisions that you're making, that's where the education piece comes in. And then it hurts a little bit more when there's no equity, know?
Right. Oh, yeah,
so
for sure.
Like, or that it's not an option. I don't have $50K in the bank to pay my, or whatever,
I know. Well, nobody wants to write a check to sell a huge asset. And a lot of them, they're turning around to where they're having to rent the homes because they don't have the equity to pay 2 real estate agents. So now they've got to deal with the rental side of things and keep that asset for years in hopes that things finally increase. And that's another tough situation that you run into. So it's not designed to replace real estate agents entirely. As I mentioned, I'm going to be employing real estate agents to kind of help guide through the process. I think it's just to trim the fat on a lot of those things that are out there where there's agents that aren't providing a service and they're truly just there to collect a paycheck. So I want to make sure that people don't take out their pitchforks for you, because you're here to help real estate agents. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, like, why are you talking to this guy? So you are probably one of the best things that I added in my real estate career, just because of the presentation piece of the home and the way you're able to make it look. And that's why we wanted it. That was the very first thing we wanted to incorporate in the app.
Yeah, and I just like all the different kind of innovations and different thought process, even between real estate agents. Like, we do a lot of business with Open Door, OfferPad, flat fee companies. So it's not like there's always, transactions going on, and there's different models. It's just interesting and to see, people's different perspectives and that's one question I've had asked is, how are you different from the flat fee listings? And essentially, not only are we cheaper than these flat fee listings that are out there, but they list your home and then everything's on you. They'll provide a few resources, maybe with like different forms and stuff. But that's when you do have to go out there and try and learn the entire real estate industry, because you have no guidance on what the heck to do next. That's why the app, so we're not leaving you at the front door as soon as we list. We're listing the home, and our thing that we're prideful on is we're here from the time you're just brainstorming about selling your property all the way to the closing table. Because a lot of the work comes in after you get the accepted offer. That's when your inspection period is, the appraisal, the coordination of your signing, the actual moving. We want to provide that guidance all throughout the process, rather than just listing your home and then wishing you the best. Yeah, if I'm thinking about it, you're probably on par on pricing if you take off the sign and the photos with just a service that all they do is put the property on the MLS, and that's it. I don't know what they charge, $300 or something, and they do absolutely nothing.
You got to provide your own photos.
You have a lot of resources and tools for.
Well, you gotta have the connections of the people that are good at their job too. Because if you don't have a resource on who is a good title company that's more personable and is actually able to help me, there's title companies out there that they're so convoluted with the amount of transactions they have. There is no personalization, I guess you can say, to the escrow process, to where it's like, you need to be here at this time to sign. Here's your settlement statement. We'll have questions. This is what it is. You know what I mean? It's like, that's really tough. So we got to make sure that, essentially, from my experience, I've partnered with the best. One of them, you guys. Then we've got the title companies, fantastic. The lender is absolutely one of those, where this lender that we work with, and obviously they can use anybody that they want, but we've had times where other lenders can't get a loan approved. We send it over to these guys and they're able to get it done. And that's the difference between the client actually getting their home or not. So you've got to have those different parties in place to make sure that it's a streamlined process. Otherwise, the whole system falls apart.
Right. Yeah, it's all about like maintaining your level of service, especially as you grow. And I think you mentioned that earlier on the real estate side of things, whether you're going to do it by yourself or train people or build a team or whatever. It's the same thing like with any business. So what's your strategy just to maintain that level of service? Because that's always that's a hard part, even for me. When I started ListerPros, I did everything. I skipped holidays and vacations and stuff like this. I didn't have any of this when you first started, just to get that level of service and be able to have a solid track record. And then you start relying on other people, right? So you almost, at least for me in my head, I always just come to terms that I have to be able to get 80% of, I can't expect them to be me, but if I could get 80% out of the team, that would be a win for me.
And we're not talking about the guy that's doing the video that's listening to us right now. He's 100%, right?
He's 100%. Yeah, right. But actually, depending on the role, so I'm talking about when you're first transitioning from a solo guy to a 3-person operation. Now the people on our team, they do things way better than I would do by myself. So the producer right now, he actually is in charge of recruiting and hiring. Awesome. So he does a much better job at that than I would. Plus, I don't want to do that job. And then I have other people on the operations and stuff. So when you get to a certain point, you can put people on seats on the bus that do it better. But that initial is, I think that's the hardest thing from I always think about going back to that mindset when it was just me by myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to transition? Right. My long-term goal is to build something meaningful, and have a team, but how do you do it? Not only is it hard financially, like the guy that I hire, he's making more than me, at least for the first year. But I'm willing to take L's in the short term for the long term vision to play out.
When we opened up the IV company, I mean, none of the owners got paid for a full year. It was one of those where I was doing real estate to pay the bills and kind of trying to handle the IV stuff as much as we could. All of our employees and stuff were obviously paid wonderful amounts of money because they're the ones that are out there doing the service. But you talk about that too. I think that's, and I read a statistic somewhere that essentially that's one of the number one killers of small businesses is the refusal to delegate and to hire.
Yeah.
And then also on the other side of it, it's also who you made that first hire. If you do somebody that's only providing 20, 30%, well, now you're just banging a head up against a wall. Hopefully you're getting 20, 30%. Some of them are not even showing up for work. So then you've got to turn around and you've got to do the whole process all over again. You got to catch up from what was there. So you got to be smart with that first hire. But it is the scariest hire.
It's critical and it's scary. Luckily, I had a good first hire that was a hard worker.
That's good.
But whatever you said, it reminded me. I'm like going back to those days because, like you didn't take a paycheck. Mm-hmm. And I remember driving around when I started ListerPros, it was just very small. This is probably, but I remember making expired listing calls from my car driving on Mojo Sales. Yeah. I'm like trying to get listings at the same time, and it's like, the things that you do to survive. I think I remember like thinking like I have X amount of money to survive for this amount of time. How can I survive longer? It's like a matter of survival at the beginning, and then you make so many like not bad business decisions, but like growth sometimes is a problem. So we like grew fast, and then we have people, and then we're making a good amount of money, and then it's like, wait a minute, like, and we have so much accounts receivables outstanding in this particular time, and then I'm like, I'm gonna have to tap into like these deep reserves that I reserved for when I first started ListerPros, and we're making some. I'm like, oh my gosh,
dude, why do you think,
crazy.
Why do you think I don't have any hair anymore, man? I'm telling you, it's the same thing. And that's the whole concept is a lot of people are afraid to make that leap because of those issues, or they just shut down and they go back to the W-2 working for somebody because that is a peace of mind thing. You know how much you're getting paid, but at the end of the day, you never know. Is there layoffs? You know what I mean? Like, how do you know? You feel like you know you got a guaranteed paycheck, but in this day and age, I mean, corporations are laying off whole departments just to raise their stock. You know, it's the craziest thing. So I one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got whenever I was actually working for American Express, I was sitting in a cubicle, feeling like a robot. You know, you're just talking on the phone all day. I wanted to make the transition into real estate initially. It's a big, scary thing, because you never know if it's going to work, and you don't get paid unless you're selling. That's the same thing with every business, same thing that you did. The best way to look at it is literally what is the absolute worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work. You end up in an apartment, you still have your family, then you can go get that W-2 job if you need to start rebuilding, or you can start the next idea. That's a heck of a lot better than living your entire life going on a W-2 wondering what if. You know, what if I would have made that leap? What if I would have tried to do that? So I think that's huge.
It's a scary decision to leave.
It is.
Because I was making decent money. I was a branch manager at Wells Fargo, and then it's like, oh my. And I had like 3 kids at the time, you know? Yeah. My wife doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's like,
oh yeah, that's a big one.
This is a scary one.
I think the wife scares us more than anything.
Yeah, and then
she's looking.
That's the funny thing, that she was more supportive.
That's good.
Or saw more potential in myself than I did. I'm like, oh, this is
and that's the type of partner
scary.
you need.
But it was a bit. It was back in the days when Wells Fargo was a bit pushing like unethical practices on their retail banking stuff, and I just didn't like going to work and like people trying to pressure you to be like unethical. I didn't. My integrity was worth more than that, but man, it's
difficult to do something on a daily basis, something you don't believe in. I mean, that's huge. But back to the wife being supportive. So one of the things I've been telling my kids too, that's huge. If you take anything away from this, the most important decision you'll ever make in your life is the partner that you choose. I mean, if they're able to support you on something like that, dude, that might be the reason why you're here. Whereas if she's like, no, you can't do that. We got to make sure we take care of it. You're still sitting there at Wells Fargo being miserable, And that's huge, man. That's really cool that she was supportive and kind of on the back end.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, and then, there are struggles. So I transitioned, was expecting more money, wasn't making much money. So then you go down the road of food stamps, and then, dude, I'm like in the office of the Access for healthcare. Like early on, it was.
Well, then imagine too, at the same time you're struggling and doing that, you've got, she's looking on the social media feed at home of all these people that are going on trips and stuff, and you're just like, what? I'm trying, I want to be there. So, but that's the big thing, dude. I think it's a big scary leap, but my goodness, it's wonderful every time. Even if it doesn't work, it's an incredible feeling.
And that's actually how I view it now. I think it's really scary when you're kind of inexperienced. But everything that, you do, it's just learning. It's never like a failure. Like you learned a way that didn't work, or you learned a way that but you still took something away. And I think it all comes down to like investing in yourself and your knowledge and your experience. So I the things that I've learned are very transferable to more than just what we do right now. It's just, we're in the service-based business. That's what's real estate. That's what we do. And we just so happen to take pictures, right? But it's, at the end of the day, for me, it just comes down to delivering a great customer experience. And that's 100%. That's really what I care about most.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another part of it is just being stubborn as hell too. It's like you just refuse to fail. It's like, you know what I mean? Like you said, I'm on food stamps. I'm at the bottom of the barrel, but dude, this is gonna work. I'm gonna make sure it happens. And that's huge. And I think that type of drive, a lot of people give up too fast. And you never know if the next day you had that big sale. But I like your concept. As far as, so I think the reason why the businesses have been successful is because you are driven by the process and the customer experience, not by the money you're making.
Right.
If you're able to build something and money is not the driving factor, it is just a side effect, you will be successful. That's absolutely awesome. And I think that's something as to why you are here today and, have a studio, have an office. And
what makes it fun.
Yeah.
I just feel like what's weird is like, you remember when you worked at, you have a weekend and then you go to the office and you're like, oh man, I got to go to work on Monday.
Yeah.
I literally can't remember the last time I had that feeling.
Right.
It's almost like I have to when I work and stuff, it's just like I have fun, right. And I just exist. It's like what I do. I would rather work on the business and tinker with stuff and systems and logistics and try to fix and make something better than play video games. I will play video games sometimes with my kids, but it's just fun.
It's a depressing feeling, right? You go into work on Monday and you're like,
yeah.
But I will tell you on the flip side.
What I was just saying, I never have a case of the Mondays or anything like that. I'm always just, it's a holiday? I didn't know. I'm still doing the same thing that I always do.
The flip side of that, though, is that feeling of Friday when you're clocking out. It's pretty amazing, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just
that's
dude,
true.
I fully get to clock out and do nothing. We don't get to do that. You're fully
That's
working
true.
all the time.
Yeah.
So there's pros and cons for sure too. Absolutely.
That is true.
Okay, so what's the burning question that you wanted to transition to this orange thing?
Cars? Yeah, I haven't. Yeah. For a while, I didn't even know about your accident and Dude, it's crazy.
It's tough, man. It's one of those where kind of just, you're trying to wrap your head around it as well, too, for the longest time. And, it's to the point of not even understanding fully why I'm here. That's how crazy it was, and you're trying to do the right thing in regards to, what happened is we loaded up 2 race cars into a trailer and drove down to Bowling Green, which was where the Corvette Museum is. Instead of us, driving our race cars down there and, naturally in a fast car, maybe you're going a little quicker, that kind of thing than you should be. We're just loaded up into a truck. And actually, I have just recently found more information in regards to, we had 3 semis that were on the right of us. And the way that creates an air vortex goes up underneath the truck and then essentially hits the trailer. Well, there's nowhere to go in the trailer because it's an enclosed. So the air goes up underneath it. and there's a cavity that actually the guy that inspected it and told me this looked at. There's essentially the way the structure's built, it's like a little bubble right here. So the air gets up underneath there, literally lifted the trailer to where it's up off the tongue, and at the same time, and this is the air coming from the third semi, at the same time I got pulled towards the semi. So we're doing a huge sway. It was literally, I remember, and it sounded like, that hurricane sound whenever you have wind that's hitting a window.
Yeah.
It hit us this way, went left, and then right, and then jackknifed. And it was insane. It was one of those where, you never think that something like that can ever happen, especially on a flat, straight road. And that's why it was just so like, how does that even occur? But, it's the cars and stuff, it's built into us, right? It's something that we absolutely love. And I think that that'll never go away for sure. But, unfortunately, the little dream car that I was, and people look at, I had the Lamborghini Performante. And people are like, I've actually had some people say, like, you don't look like a guy that would own a car like that. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you're not a douche. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. What the heck? And it's because it's not a status symbol. It's just a car guy living the dream. Kind of like, I think you got the GTR and stuff, right? So you have your mindset on us. We were the kids that had the Lamborghini Diablo poster in our rooms, back in the 80s, or the Countach, that kind of thing.
I had like the little Maestro that my grandma gave me from like Sam's Club. I had like a Ferrari F50, a McLaren F1, and a 98 Corvette. I was talking to my kids about this. And then a Viper GTS. So there's always like,
I love it,
these
man.
cars.
And I don't know what it is. I think it's a mental disability that we have, but we'll never get away from it. And it's something that eventually one of these days I'll be back. For sure.
What's funny is like you have these cars these days that have like the fastest horsepower. Like obviously you've had a Plaid, I have a Plaid. Like these, they're not as fun to drive. Like the car that I drive the most these days is a '99 Civic Si, 5-speed. I can just go through the gears. It has like 160 horsepower. You can hear the VTEC. Oh man, it's so fun.
Who's the famous guy that drives that? Is it John Cena?
Oh, he drives a Type R, I think.
Okay.
Civic Type R.
I think that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Dude, it's just because he's a car guy.
Oh my gosh, it's like the mechanics, right? It's not like I'm gonna go out and just drive the fastest. Like if I'm going somewhere far, I'll take the autopilot Tesla. It's like a souped up golf cart. That's how.
Right.
It's not engaging. Like I like the noise, or like my wife's Corvette. The dual clutch is incredible on that car.
Shifts. I know.
Like my GTR has dual clutch, it shifts, but it's nothing like that thing is. It's crazy.
That's the whole thing, though, too, is if you're perfect on every run, what's the point in continuing to run? And I remember I'd gone to the track, the little quarter-mile track. And
you took the Plaid out there?
No, I haven't done the Plaid, but I did the Lamborghini. And obviously the sound and stuff is wonderful. But after like 2 or 3 passes, you're just like, all right, well, I know what it does. It's not going to get better because truly it's fully auto. You have the paddle shifters, but you get to the point where it still knows when it's supposed to shift. There's like a launch mode. You take off in it, and it does everything the whole way. So the Plaid's the same concept. You just don't even get the sounds. It's even more boring.
You get nothing.
Yeah. You do 1 or 2 runs. You're like, wow, that was cool. All right. And I've actually had times where it was funny. I pulled up next to a Z06. He's sitting at the freaking start line, just whoa, 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 just the whole freaking car is moving. And I'm like, holy cow, that's so cool. Take off in the Plaid, absolutely leave him, but you still feel like you lost. You're just like, hey, sorry. You know what I mean? I'm that guy. I promise I like your car better. I swear, you know, that kind of thing. Even though but it's the experience. You know, you want the smell, you want the shifting, you want all that stuff. And that's why, you know, your Civic Si is so much more fun to drive. And
I when I turned 35, I bought like a $8,000 S2000, and I had that car for over 6 years. That car
awesome.
is such a driver's car. It's so fun, it has a lot, like 240 horsepower, but rear wheel drive. You can do donuts and stuff. So there's. I love the little convertible.
Yeah. No,
Honda.
I know. I'm doing math in my head right now because you're talking about you bought it at 35, you had it for 6 years.
Oh,
Dude, how old are you?
I'm 43 now. So I sold it a couple years ago.
You know, I just turned 40. I'm like, dude, where did it go? You know what I mean? Where were those wondrous kids back in 2013 when we met?
Yeah. And I'm looking at like I just like appreciate the little engineering things in different cars, like older ones and new cars, and I'm like
right.
I want to tell my kids like, oh, sell the GTR and get something else, because I like to drive different experiences.
Yeah.
It's just fun. They're like, no, don't sell it. I'm like.
Well,
it doesn't get that much love in them.
The problem is then you need the storage, and that's why the RV garages are a big thing out here.
Yeah.
You know, just start having those cars out there, which is
That's
crazy,
dangerous.
so.
My wife's like, oh, let's get something. I'm like, no.
The more space you have, the more opportunities for cars, for sure. That is awesome. It feeds the addiction.
Yeah.
So it's almost better to stick with a 3-car garage, because ultimately, if you go bigger, it's hard to ever go back to that 3-car, because now you got the storage aspect, you got all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
And you've had the GTR for quite a while,
Yeah, I
right?
bought that one, I think before I turned 4. No, I've had it for a few years.
Yeah. That was the dream. I remember, when that first came out in 2009, that was every car kid's dream.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like one of my goals. Like before I turned 40, I wanted a GTR and then to pay off our house. That's awesome, my two goals. So
you got the GTR. The other one we'll deal with later. I'm just kidding.
I did.
Priorities, man. Yeah. We got to get the GTR. No, I'm just kidding. So I did one of those, and I love my GTR.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, that's awesome, man. I think that's that's a total car guy goal, and I had the same thing growing up. You know. It's really awesome.
But like in your head, it's like, even when I was like, you always have like those far goals, like, oh, that would be so awesome to have one of those, and then you achieve it, and then it's like, oh, and it's like, even if like you could get something, like you have a cooler car than me, I guess a Lamborghini is cooler, but I just like, I don't know, I'm like, for me, I'm just like a simple little.
We know what's funny is you hear those guys that are like the super rich that can just go out and buy anything that they want. They're like, every time that you obtain a goal and you have one of those things, you always want something more. So it's like it almost becomes boring now, because essentially they're going out and just, I'm going to go get a Bugatti today, I guess. You know, I don't know what else to do. Rather than being like, dude, I want that Bugatti one day. I'm going to build for 15 years, and I hope I can do it before I'm 40, you know, and then you achieve that goal. That's so much more exciting than just a normal boring Tuesday. You know what I mean? I'm trying to make my Tuesday better, you know, and that's crazy. So they talk about that too, that, you know, they wish that they could go back to the small business set where we're at, where you're in the grind, you're in the field, you're working hard, and you have those goals that you're trying to achieve, both on a personal level and a business level. Because I feel like a lot of human nature and kind of what gives us reason to wake up in the morning is to have a purpose, to have drive. If you don't have a purpose, man, I mean, you're just staring at a wall all day, you start to deteriorate. And that's why I think a lot of times, and this is obviously a whole different subject, but I think that's why sometimes you hear about those superstars that they OD on drugs and stuff, dude, because they've done everything. You know, it's like, what else am I going to do? Or I'm going to take these pills that everybody's partying with, you know, that kind of stuff. And for us, we don't have time for pills, man. I have to have a sound mind every single day. So it's kind of an interesting concept.
Yeah, it's fun. And I think that's the thing. Like, where do you get if your motivation is like in like things like cars or something, you like, once you, not that was my motivation. It's just kind of like a aspirational goal. Right. Oh, that's cool. That would be cool one day. Then you get those. Then you get down to like what's your purpose and like how you want to spend your time. And you really realize that in life, the real asset is time. And how do you spend your time? You know, I feel like I could die tomorrow and I feel like great about how I spend my time. You know, that because I think about those things, and obviously like I have like short-term goals that are just like fun. It's not like, oh, I want to do this so that I can get a bigger house or get a for our or something aspirational like thing. But yeah, what I've been thinking of lately is just doubling ListerPros. That sounds like a fun like challenge. Sure. So now everything that I do, and I'm just thinking in the back of my head is like how what can I do today to progress to get there?
I like that. That's awesome. That's one of the things too that you talked about, and we'll go back to the business side of things. So for people that are actually still listening to this, they've realized that we talked about it. We have undiagnosed ADHD. I don't think that they even have the ability to understand what it is that we're talking about right now. It's like these guys are talking about 3 different things in one conversation. Yeah. But that's how we. I've actually been called out on that before, and I'm like, doesn't everybody talk that way? I thought that's how it's supposed to be.
Well, I've been called out a lot on like not being able to pay attention to people telling stories.
Yeah,
like,
okay. They start talking. Well,
like, all right, I got a problem.
You're thinking about how do you double ListerPros? You know, it's like back to that thing where I got in trouble because I would introduce myself to a person at a party for the 3rd time, and they're like, "Yeah, dude, I met you like 20 minutes ago." Oh, sorry, I'm not actually here. You know. So, all right. So back to the business thing.
That's funny.
You talked about your producer, or the guy that's doing the hiring and stuff. That you're allowing. You have gotten better because of the people that you've hired, and you've listened to their concepts and stuff. I think that's another key to being successful is always willing to learn. You get to that point where you get into the corporate world of stuff, and they have a set way of doing things. Even if you have an idea of how to progress something, they're not listening to you. Nobody cares. And that's why I think it's better to be at the stance that we're at with a small business. I don't want to be a big corporation somewhere. You lose that human element of it. And the ability to grow, because now all they're doing, those higher ups, they're looking at the numbers. Everything is a numbers game of, we talked about it, if you lay off this department, well, now my stock's going to go up because my expenses went down and my EBITDA just increased.
Right.
So now all of a sudden I'm making more money because I own 50% of our stock. And it's like, dude, you just laid off 20 families. You know what I mean? That's crazy. So where those 20 families, if you really talk to them, they're in the field, they're in the grind, sit down and talk to them about their ideas. Maybe they have an idea to evolve your company to where now that profit that you just made by laying them all off, I mean, you could do tenfold because now they're able to advance the company.
Right.
People don't do that, and then all of a sudden they turn around and they're a blockbuster. It's crazy. And that's the thing I think that is a real big key, is always willing to learn from your people.
And I think that's going to be a struggle over the next couple of years as AI really starts to evolve. I've seen like tools that I use now are pretty very.
It's nice, huh? That's awesome.
Like the capabilities, right?
Yeah.
So that it really makes you think about, man, where is everybody going to find value? You know, because I think that matters. You know, just for like human existence and like it doesn't sound fun to me just to sit around. Oh, you get a paycheck, you get everything handed to you. That just doesn't appeal to me.
Right. That's why you're not a W-2 employee.
Yeah.
That's kind of goes back to that concept. But I also feel like, you know, we talk about AI and it kind of being like it's going to destroy the world and it's going to take all of our jobs. A lot of people felt that way about robotics whenever that first came into play.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's always going to be something that people evolve and AI starts creating jobs. You know, they start creating different reasons as to why we need a workforce. I don't know what those are because it does everything right now, but eventually AI is going to make it so that there's more opportunity for people to work.
It's like you supercharge every person with the AI where they're now productive to the extent of like what 10 people would do previously.
Which is awesome. Yeah. And you can still have that same workforce, and now you're able to get things done in a year that would have taken 10. You know?
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And that's, you know, hopefully that advances technology tenfold, and we get back into that technological era that people talk. I mean, think about where we were late 1800s, man. Like, you know, the wagons, and that's the Oregon Trail thing. And you're talking 125 years later, it's like, look at where we're at. That's crazy. So just think about, I mean, I always like to think about what is going to be out there that we have no idea can exist when we're 65, 70 years old. You know, you got to think about those people that were born in the 1950s. They didn't think about smartphones. They didn't know the internet was even a thing. So what could possibly be created that we have no idea even exists? And AI is going to be a big part of creating something. It's probably going to be able to take everything and be like, oh, the human civilization needs this. And we're like, dang, yeah, we do.
Yeah, I think it's going to be like exponential change. Do you know how like like the progress of like one decade from like the 50s to the 60s. Yeah, you have progress, but it's not like crazy. I think in the next decade, it's like wild.
Really?
You know?
I like it.
I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I also think like what happens, like there's like short-term issues with the initial implementation of this kind of stuff where like, all right, people get really productive, and then maybe they don't, like you said, so maybe some people start laying stuff off, and then like how do you bridge that gap to get to this where it's like, I don't know.
The inefficient job roles are no longer needed because AI can take over those. But I do still think it's going to create more skill sets, more ability, more job openings essentially down the road. So I think it's a good thing. Now the problem is obviously it's things like that are also used for bad. You have the deep fake videos and stuff like that are out there. And honestly, the best thing that I've seen with AI is the reels that are hilarious. On social, when you're doom scrolling at the end of the night, you're just like, this is awesome, you know. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think maybe I'm trying to be optimistic, but I think it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be used for good.
I think so too, but I just think there's going to be like some like real learning experiences, you know, to get like, you know, like I think I've listened to like Elon Musk or whatever, how he like forecasts like, having a job will be optional. You only work in 20 years, like will be optional. But okay, but from year 1 to year 20, what does that look like?
Yeah, right.
I mean, he might be right.
Yeah.
But that's going to be kind of chaotic for 20 years.
Well, so you bring up Elon too, kind of back what we were talking about before. That guy, you know, has more money than he could possibly spend, kind of thing. He could essentially just go off on his own, do nothing, and die one day. But he has that purpose. It's not about money and making more money anymore. He has the drive to build things and to truly evolve humanity. And I think that is absolutely incredible. And that's kind of what gives him that purpose every day to continue waking up like he's on fire. You know, I mean, the guy can relax, but he chooses not to because he knows he wants to keep using his brain. There's some statistic out there that whenever people retire, they age faster than whenever they were working. And that's crazy. And that's why I feel like people like you, like myself, I'm always going to want to be building something. I'm always going to want to do some sort of business that I'm trying to start and trying to build regardless of how old I am. And that's something that I think is again, my purpose. So it's exciting. A reason to get out of bed.
So did your Lambo get totaled in the accident? Yeah. So what's on the horizon?
Right now,
Hold on, do you have a GR86?
No, so it's the 370Z. So I still have that old thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's basically like, so you ever see that movie Cars? You have, because you got kids, right?
Yeah.
So the Z is Doc. He's just hanging out in the garage. It's basically broken. It kind of works, but not really. So
hold on, but long-term longevity, like that thing used to pull on the twin turbos. I remember you took me out on the freeway on that thing.
Well, but okay, so back to the whole goals thing.
Hold on a second. Let me ask you, was the reason that you went that route versus GTR because it was a 6-speed and the GTR was manual?
100%.
Just because I'm like, you probably spent on the car and the turbos and the tunes probably more than what a GTR cost at the time.
Well, I told you that, so before I bought that Z, I test drove a GTR, and I was like, ultimately the best thing about that drive was the fact that it was a GTR. Other than that, though, it was boring. I mean, there was no reason to shift. There was nothing going on. It's a big, heavy car. And my typical driving is driving around with the kids to the soccer fields and stuff like that. So I'm doing the not daily driver, but like city driving. And in a GTR, if you're not racing, it's a sedan, essentially, at that point. So that was one of the reasons why, at least if I'm stuck in traffic, I'm shifting gears, which is cool.
Yeah.
But, okay, so back to the whole, once you achieve something, you always want more. That's the same thing with horsepower. I mean, my goodness. It's like that's been my problem. You talk about you and I was able to kind of show you what it can do. Like, dang, that thing really pulls. Eventually, it feels slow, and you want to go faster, and then faster, and all of a sudden you turn around and you're on your third motor, like I am, and it's just like, dude, I'm done with this thing. So
the Z?
Yeah, I wanted
3 motors?
Yeah, well, so essentially I wanted 1,000 wheel horsepower. That was my goal, and nobody had it at the time. I think there's a few of them out there, but
you start breaking stuff. That's why I leave my GTR at 900. I'm like, I'm not going any higher. Yep. I don't want to start breaking
probably
stuff.
full bolt-on, essentially.
E85, yeah.
And essentially the Z, I think the block just can't handle that torque. There's a lot of people out there that have done some major setups and gun customizations to be able to get that power. But essentially, I'm kind of over it type of thing. I'm actually, so what I like to do is I've got this little FRS, completely stock. I'm now teaching my daughter how to race on the racetrack out at the Corvette factory.
That's awesome.
Which is so cool. So now it's like, I've gone the complete opposite. Did you get the
6-speed version?
No,
the automatic?
So I'm letting her learn the automatic.
Okay.
And actually,
but it does have paddles, doesn't it?
Okay. Yeah, the thought process initially was get a little FRS, have it automatic, have her learn, and then once she gets that down, then upgrade to like a Supra or something. The new Supras that essentially are manual, I think they're absolutely fantastic. After driving around that FRS on the track, dude, I'm like, this thing, it's nimble, it's decently quick. Obviously it doesn't have a ton of power, which is a good thing for, a kid that's learning. But, they're fun. And then at the same time, too, if I do something and damage it, it's not a big deal. My daughter actually came up with the idea that if we damage it, don't fix it. She's like, just go get a Sharpie and you got to sign and initial the date right next to the dent that you put on it. I'm like, I'm in, so you can't do that in a Supra. So now the thought process is once she gets that down, I want to go get a manual of the exact same car. And then you've got the both of us that are driving around on the track, that would be awesome. So it's all about the experience.
Yeah,
and
if it's really about fun, that's probably the ideal setup. Like, man, it's so fun. Just little SI 160 horsepower. You can just really go through the gears. It's probably about the same horsepower as the FRS.
So it's nimble. So you go back to, if you want to cut the clip, all right, Ryan, you went from a Lambo. What's your next car? Well, Scion FRS. You're like, what happened to you? So that's basically, going opposite. But it's all about, like you said, time, memories, and experiences with the family. That's what it's all about, dude. It really is. It's awesome. So,
nice.
Mm-hmm. And she absolutely loves it. I actually did the Lucas Oil Racing School, which was the coolest thing. It's actually an open cockpit, open wheel cars that you get to learn on their track.
Oh, wow.
And it's basically like a little F4 car without any of the aero. And it was the coolest thing for her to be able to kind of get her little racing license that way. And she's literally like, I'm going to go do that again, go get my license again, instead of driving the other cars just because of how much fun it was. So it was really cool.
And that's Bowling Green?
No, that's everywhere. So Lucas Oil Lucas Oil Racing School, they are all over the place. Sometimes they're in Florida, sometimes in Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky. So they basically do, I think it's probably like 3 or 4 a month that they go out and they have these programs and they travel. And it's pretty cool, man. The people that are there, you've got some little mini Max Verstappens out there, dude. It's awesome. They are so into it. And I think there was one kid, I don't know his name, but he hops out. He looks like he's probably 6 years old. He's whipping around this car better than me. He would have absolutely destroyed me in a race. He hops out to the point where you got this car, it's really low, and he literally has to jump like it's like a giant lifted truck, basically. And he lands, takes off his helmet, starts walking around. I found out that he's being homeschooled. So he's not even going to a traditional school. He gets 3 to 4 hours worth of lessons, and then other than that, he's on the simulator and racing.
Wow.
And I'm like, dude, that is crazy that people are living that way. But that's kind of what people are doing to get into F1 and all the races. That kid's probably going to be an F1 driver. It's crazy.
Wow.
So that's the type of things that's at Lucas Oil that's pretty interesting. But then so I was the grown-up doing it with my daughter, and there was a lot of other kids that were running around doing it too. But I did have one that I remember I was driving, and the kid was right in front of me. I see him kind of fishtail a little bit, and I'm just watching him. All of a sudden, he goes off the track, hits the tires, and the front of the car goes flying up into the air. It's the craziest thing. Those cars are designed, though, to fall apart everywhere else but the cockpit. So you got pieces that are flying everywhere, and he's just like, oh, man, that sucks, and gets up and then hops in another car and drives around again. So that's the way that the other half lives, man. Yeah, right, exactly. And then, of course, what they're doing is then they take that car back and they replace a couple of pipes and stuff, and it's good to go again. So it's pretty cool the way they have that set up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Sweet. Well, what else is going on?
Dude, nothing much, man. Just trying to come back and forth as far as Kentucky and Arizona, build the business, and enjoy time with the kids and family in between. So it's pretty awesome. Man. Yeah, but dude, it's so good to be able to catch up with you and hang out. And this is kind of the way that I think we should just hang out on the microphones. So
yeah.
Next time we get some tequila in here or something. You don't drink though,
no.
Right? Oh man, yes. I guess just me. I'm the problem.
You can bring the tequila. I'll bring the bottle of water.
Yes, right. All right. Well, we'll put a lime in yours. That way
Yeah.
At least it looks better for
There we
aesthetics.
go.
Okay,
Yeah.
you gotta make it
Put
right.
some bubbly. I'll drink the LaCroix or something.
I love it. That's perfect. But dude, I mean, we, obviously last time we hung out, went to the Cardinals game, which was a blast.
Thanks for the invite. That was
I
fun.
wish they were better, but I think that's what we're always saying in Arizona. It seems like it's the craziest thing. We can be winning, and you still feel like they're going to lose, and then sure enough, that's exactly what happens. I think they feel like they're going to lose. It's a good time, but I feel like, because I sell some of those tickets because I bought the season tickets and I'll go to all the games. The people that buy them are always the visiting team fans.
Oh, really?
It's really hardly ever Cardinals fans, and it's kind of sad. So, but at the end of the day, if you're not putting something good on the field, it makes sense. People don't want to not only spending the money, but you sacrifice a full Sunday to go to some of those games.
Yeah,
so it is still an absolute blast. And I'm really glad that I have them because it brings friends together. Again, back to the whole memories and having fun. Ultimately, you mentioned you and I just sat there and we talked like we're doing right now with the football game in the background. It's just kind of like background noise while you and I are hanging out.
Right.
That's what it turns into, which is fun. It's kind of expensive background noise, but that's all right.
Yeah.
But Jordan, dude, thank you so much for inviting me here and hanging out with me today. And obviously for the viewers for hanging out with us today. This was really fun.
Yeah.
Got to do it again sometime.
All right, so we'll end it there. Well,
Cool.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys on the next one.